first speaker for the day, Mr. Kalyanasundaram, IAS, for this session.
The respected Swamiji Sukadevananda, respected Brahmacharya Bodhatma Chaitanya, Principal Dr. Srinivasan, Dr. Manikandan, Faculty Coordinator Mr. Sriram, Mr. Venkat, and the compeer who competed here, Marav, and the members of the teaching community present here, and the faculty members of this college and the young students. I am delighted to be here this morning to share some of my thoughts on teaching methodology. In fact, I consider it as a prestige, great honor to be in this august institution to deliver this talk. In fact, last week when Dr. Manikandan asked me to speak on teaching methodology, I was hesitant, I was humble, because I am a teacher by divine intervention and divine accident. I was in civil services, and there are many members here who are more senior to me in teaching profession. But even then, I thought as a fresher and learner, by trial and error you learn more. I thought I would share some of what I learned in the 10 years after quitting the civil services. I always felt for a long time about education. I have forgotten what is taught about integration or calculus by my mathematics professor. I have forgotten also almost about Newton's law by the physics professor. I have forgotten also about what is Excell plus KMNO4. But all those subjects are forgotten. But from first standard till today, I have not forgotten my teachers. Because as far as education is concerned, I feel for the people, the best pages of the textbook is only the teacher. He is the role model. Because the people, the teachers who inspired us, who created fire in us, whom we treasure even in today's life. Because I believe basically the sacred memory from childhood, what we get, which we cherish in our heart, that is the best education a person which gets. So which we got it from many of the teachers who came with the fire in the class and who warmed us. Because as such, this profession, when I took it up, initially I thought 10 years back whether I had chosen a right profession. Because as you are in the government civil services, as you know, you have a subservient, subordinate class who will always say yes for everything. They will never say no. And here the student, when he comes, this present generation student, he has more demands, he is very impulsive. Then I thought probably this impact of globalization or media, whether he is arrogant. Then later, after studying for 8 to 10 months, I realized the fact that he is not arrogant. Basically, it is a case of ignorance. Because I felt, looking at him, talking to many of the students, I came to the conclusion that he is, I really pity for the thing is, they have been deprived of many early childhood joys. The joys of being with the parent, as in the competitive world, they are put under the care of either a nursing mother in a play school or at the hands of greedy tuition masters. Half the time they don't have the occasion to even see the parents. And particularly the great team spirit of a joint family which we all had, or even the tolerant sports spirit which we used to play. These things when they are deprived of, then I thought his demands and this thing one can understand. The teacher has got a more response, particularly when it comes to the question of being also a multi-role, multitask with this thing which is put on the shoulders of the teacher. Basically, I also believe, apart from the academic curriculum, as Swamiji mentioned, there is a social curriculum which should be given more importance. Because I believe, we remember even today the teachers, particularly, who have taught us eternal values, who have taught us man-making values, who taught us life-building values, who taught us lasting values, who quoted at least in 1 hour class 15 minutes either from Swami Vivekananda or from the lives of Einstein or from the lives of Abraham Lincoln or from the great literary spirits of Shakespeare or Charles Dickens or about Henry David Thoreau, and those are the people who live in our hearts even today also. The flame lit by them, even today the passion, the fire, the thirst which he created from them, that only lives here, that is only made me also to share. We stand here only because of those teachers we salute. Because basically what happens is today, as I believe as far as the education is concerned, it is totally surrounding only upon the teacher-pupil relation. One has to respect the people. We cannot thwart or put our own views or our own this thing on him. We must help the nature to take care of the child. He is nature's unique child. Though nature loves analogies, but nature never likes carbon copies, either from the father or parent or anybody, but whether from the father or a teacher. A teacher, I always believe right from my first standard, the teacher who tries to control or who uses authority, he stands an obstacle to it, or what you can call for the learning process. Because as such, the role of the teacher is, you open up the possibilities, you demonstrate to show what is possible. After that, the learning is done by him. As our Brahmacharya told in the earlier, what Swami Vivekananda told, the perfection is in him, what he told which comes out. Because the key, he holds the secret, what he wants. The whispering is done to him right from his earlier age. Because he has been nursed under the care of his mother as a first teacher, he expects the same throughout his long path and learning process. So he doesn't want any obstacles or somebody to thought is this thing, where his solitude should be left alone. This is what always I believe, because here a kind of a military hurry or a kind of a, what you can call authority, this thing, it will not help. We have to have the nature to take care of him. Her nature, this thing is secret is patience, where an enthusiastic speaker, enthusiastic teacher, what he does. I wholly believe the classroom atmosphere, particularly in the case of either like a doctor-patient relationship, where in spite of all the sophisticated equipment, scanning, everything, it is only the doctor-patient relation where the intimacy is there. Half of the disease is also cured. Not that these days you go to an arrogant doctor, he feels as if you have some damage to your body and you have come, he will first abuse and then he will talk and how much he can grab. Similarly, in spite of all the sophisticated laboratories or buildings or anything, I hold the teacher counts only in the case of an educational institution. As regard teacher is concerned, the teacher-student relationship, basically, it is not only as he told, our Swamiji told, it is not only the case of educating the people, he is a real awakener also, as Swami Vivekananda told. I believe that educating the mind itself will not do. Educating the heart is also essential. Educating the heart, then only it is full complete. Because basically the perfection that our Brahmacharya Swamiji told, what is inside him, the greatest gift anything can be, which can be lasting value, is what comes from inside. It cannot be put forcibly, which can be done, because anything which is used by force, I believe it will not stay in the mind at all. So as regards other things about the teaching, this thing is concerned regarding the atmosphere which we create, the teaching atmosphere in the classroom, because the teacher basically he brings the daily weather for the student inside the classroom. The daily weather, his moods, everything is brought by him. Either he can be a tool of oppression or he can be an instrument of inspiration also. Either he can be a humanizer or he can heal also, he can hurt also. With all that, with enthusiasm, if one comes, enthusiasm has its own supernatural entity, as it has got its own eloquence. Any enthusiastic teacher who come, normally they bring radiance. There are many number of, in fact, when I joined the civil services, many of my senior colleagues used to ask me, they didn't know, they thought we are from Tamil Nadu, you must have studied only in Ramakrishna Mission, being in T Nagar or nearby RN. Those days, that was the thing, people joining civil service. They used to tell me, have you ever heard the speeches of Anna Subramaniam? They used to say that every day 10 o'clock what he talks to him, today also I hold it in my heart. So such is this thing, such gliding spirits go in this institution, and such a kind of a thing in many of the institutions nowadays, as he told, our Swamiji was mentioning about too much of information. When too much of information, I was just thinking about what T.S. Eliot told. He told, where we lost our life in living, where we lost our wisdom in knowledge, where we lost our knowledge in information. So, too much of information on the students also, it is not a very this thing. Where particularly, as Mahatma Gandhi always used to say, it is not a pouring in one side, it is a drawing out the best, where an amusement should be created for the student. Even today, I believe, when I was interacting, even today we coach for the civil service, where for 4 months or 5 months coaching. In 2 hours of time, 15 minutes I allot totally for this. So, like that, teachers come in many forms in our everyday life. I learned all these things in Swamiji's present here, I thought I will tell. When I was a probationer in 1983 in the Mussoorie Academy, Swami Ranganananda Swami from the great Ramakrishna monk, he came to deliver a talk on ethics and administration. He electrified the entire auditorium for 1.5 hours. That is the time I was provoked in my heart. Immediately when I came to Delhi, I purchased 3 volumes of his Bhagavad Gita. Even though there are a number of Gitas which are written by, this is unique and distinct by its own, this thing with so many examples what he says. And after that it prompted me also to buy all the 9 volumes of Swami Vivekananda speeches and read. And imagine one could lead to another. Today the government, what he spoke, ethics and administration, in the UPSC IAS syllabus they kept one paper itself on ethics and attitude. Because they thought the erosion of values and integrity after so many scams which were occurring, they thought they should have one full paper in the main examination. They introduced it for ethics and attitude. And one more last thing only I will share with, because he asked me that since we are ahead of the time, we should. Last this thing is, one more thing about, particularly about the education is, as here in Ramakrishna Mission it is a different thing. In many of the institutions, our own, in fact, Nani Palkiwala used to say, 10 fatal mistakes after independence. One of the fatal mistakes he will say is, in our education, our own rich culture, heritage, it is being forgotten, which is not taught as a curriculum in many of our schools or colleges, which is because our own unity out of diversity, our plural society, our accommodating spirit, the empathy for the poor which we have, and our own wholeness which is told in our Upanishad, because that is a secular one, which nobody can even tell about the Upanishad. And our own, what you can say, our anthem of music of our collective anthem, which is our hybrid civilization. This has been totally to a certain extent, which is forgotten. In fact, Swami Vivekananda used to say this is a 5,000-year-old civilization. By now, it should be our own Gita, Yoga, our Upanishad, and our heritage should be the household property of each and every home. But unfortunately, this has not been done, because our curriculum or anything, as Swamiji was mentioning, so many Malcolm Adisesha Commission came, Kothari Commission came, so many this thing came. After that also, this rich cultural heritage. Because even some of our own national leaders or some of our own people who have led a luminous life, their lives also are not put in modern India or anywhere also. If you take the case of even Nani Palkiwala, who was an intellectual trained, he has delivered innumerable number of lectures where he taught particularly the compassion. Compassion, what the education taught him, he told about compassion, that is empathy for the other, that is for the underprivileged, that is for the dispossessed, desperate, all that. So finally, what I believe is, to conclude my speech, as he was telling, learning is a life learning process. Nowadays, I learn only from my students, because they taught me many lessons. In the interactive process, some bright student come and I sit with him. I used to always tell him that your presence here, when I discuss, when some of the youngsters, when they discuss, I told him your presence have brought in such vibrations. It has increased my studies in the night by 2 hours. So keep coming and discussing. There are many number of ignited minds like that who have come. And finally, what I say is the teacher's basic this thing to inspire the student for lifelong, because the motivation which comes is from outside, which is a temporary force. Inspiration is one thing which internal glow, which is a permanent one, which lifelong till the grave which will exist. Because as Kafka used to say in a different thing, our teacher should be like axe for the frozen sea within the people. Cut the axe for the frozen sea, as our Brahmacharya was mentioning about the perfection which is inside, where it should be come out for that only. So I thank all the people for patiently listening me. And to conclude, I will tell the last this thing only about particularly the teaching community present here, because I am also the same fraternity where here, like what Bernard Shaw told, that it is not an ordinary candle which is given to me in hand. It is a bright torch which is given. So I will make it glow more brighter and hand it over the next generation. Luminous one which will handle. So that is in the hands of that social engineering, is in the hands of teachers. I thank the organizers for having invited me to share some of my thoughts here and from my experience. And I thank all the people for having patiently listened. I hope with the blessings of Sri Ramakrishna Paramahansa, because I also personally believe and meditate only in front of his photo every day. Every day I also read his sayings. I wish the teachers community feel proud of the academic institution, make your students proud, make your community proud, make the nation proud, make the nation as strong and vibrant as what Swami Vivekananda envisioned in the Committee of Nations. Thank you all.